Right. Good morning. So we'll start the discussion of exam target special paper 1. Right. We'll start the discussion of the second part first, structured essay part first. Right. Question number 1. Part A, Roman number 1. Name the elements that constitute a protein molecule. So this is from the chapter 2. Right. What are the elements that constitute a protein molecule? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur, right? Give 1 mark for that one. Roman number 2, can you all hear me? Can you hear me? If you can't hear me, send me a message. Right. Roman number 2, state the types of bonds found in the tertiary structure of a protein. Now, if we take a protein molecule, you know there are 4 levels of that structure: primary structure, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. Now, here they are asking about the bonds found in a tertiary structure. Tertiary, the bonds that found bonds, but not the interactions, right? So you can write hydrogen bonds, peptide bonds, disulfide bonds, and ionic bonds. But if you have mentioned van der Waals interactions or hydrophobic interactions, no marks will be given, right? Question number 3. Name one protein that contributes to support and strength of a tissue. The answer should be collagen. 1 mark. Roman number 4. State the component molecules that could be present in DNA and RNA but not common to both. Now, if we take DNA, it is a double-stranded nucleic acid, but RNA, it is single-stranded, right? Both DNA and RNA, they are nucleic acid and composed of nucleotides. In a nucleotide, there are 3 parts: nitrogenous base, then pentose sugar group, and phosphate group, right? Now, if we take the pentose sugar, DNA have deoxyribose, but RNA has ribose. So you can write down the pentose sugar in DNA is deoxyribose, and in RNA it is ribose. Then when we come to nitrogenous bases, DNA, they have thymine, but instead of thymine, RNA have uracil. So 1 mark for each. 1 into 4, 4 marks. Give 4 marks if your answer is correct. Roman number 5. State one functional difference between DNA and RNA. Functional difference, not structural. So DNA replicates in its own. It can self-replicate. But RNA does not. It can't undergo self-replication. So that is the functional difference between DNA and RNA. Give 1 mark. Roman number 6. Name a nucleotide that act as an oxidizing agent during respiration. Now here in under nucleotides, other than like deoxyribonucleotides and ribonucleotides, we learn about 4 other types: ATP, NAD+, NADP+, FAD+, right? Now out of them, NAD+, it can act as an oxidizing agent during respiration. 1 mark. Roman number 7, what is protein denaturation? Protein denaturation means the loss of specific 3-dimensional shape due to alteration of weak chemical bonds and interactions. Here, this answer, it will get 2 marks, right? 2 marks are allocated for this answer. But your answer should contain these points. Loss of specific chemical three-dimensional shape. Second point, due to alteration of weak chemical bonds and interactions. Right? Your answer should contain both points to get that two marks. Part B, Roman number 1. Part A. What are cell junctions? Right? There you learn in your syllabus, you learn about 3 types of cell junctions. Anchor junctions, right? Then gap junctions. So what are cell junctions? Cell junctions are structures at which neighboring plasma membranes are joined, right? 2 marks. Cell junctions are structures at which neighboring plasma membranes are joined. Part B. What are the types of cell junctions found in muscle tissue? Right? First one, anchor junctions. Anchor junctions can be found in the muscle tissue. Anchor junctions also called desmosomes. Right? You can write either anchor junction or desmosomes. And in the heart muscle, gap junctions present. Gap junctions. They are also called communicating junctions. Now, I told you there are 3 types of cell junctions. Anchor junctions and anchor junctions, gap junctions, right? So, gap junctions, they are mainly found in the heart muscle, right? In the heart muscle. What is the function of gap junction? They provide cytoplasmic channels from one cell to an adjacent cell. So they consist of special membrane proteins that surround the pore through which ions, sugars, amino acids can pass. So, and also they allow signal and material exchange between the adjacent cells through direct connections. And what is the third type? Tight junctions. But tight junctions, they are found in the skin epithelium, but here they are asking about the muscle tissue. So the two types of cell junction should be anchor junctions and gap junctions. If your both answers are correct, give 2 marks. Then, right, now they have given a figure. What is this organelle? This is endoplasmic reticulum. So for part A, the answer should be endoplasmic reticulum. You know, there are 2 types of endoplasmic reticulum. What is before that, what is endoplasmic reticulum? You can answer the questions in the chat, right? You can type your answers. If you have any doubts, just type it on the chat and send me. Endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum, it is a network of internal membranes, right? They form flattened or tubular sacs and separate cytosol from the ER lumen. ER lumen means the endoplasmic reticulum, lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. And this endoplasmic reticulum, it is continuous with the outer membrane of the nuclear envelope. And there are 2 types of endoplasmic reticulum as smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. And the other point that you should know is you can't write this smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum in short form as SCR and RER. 4 marks will be given, right? So you have to write it in words. In smooth ER is okay, but SCR, no marks. Smooth ER or rough ER, rough endoplasmic reticulum. So here they have given a this is a figure. This organelle is the endoplasmic reticulum, right? It consists of both smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. Those tubular sacs, those are the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and those flattened sacs with those dots-like structures, those are the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Give 1 mark. Then part B, name the organelle formed from the vesicles produced by the above organelle. So these endoplasmic reticulum, they produce transport vesicles. So here the answer should be Golgi apparatus. Give 1 mark. Part C, state 2 functions of the organelles shown in the above diagram, right? Now they are asking 2 functions. So this figure, it consists of both smooth endoplasmic and reticulum. So in the textbook, in the resource book, they have given around 9 functions for this smooth endoplasmic and rough endoplasmic separately. So you can write any 2 functions out of those 9 points given in the resource book, right? First one, transport proteins synthesized by ribosomes. You know, now these dot-like structures that you can see in these flattened cells, those are the ribosomes, right? Ribosomes are attached to these rough endoplasmic reticulums, right? So proteins synthesized by ribosomes move into that lumen of ER. Therefore, they can transport protein synthesized by ribosome. The second one is synthesizing glycoproteins. And third one, they can produce transport vesicles. Fourth one, now if we take the rough endoplasmic reticulum, they can facilitate the growth of own membrane by adding phospholipids, proteins, and carbohydrates. And now, so those are the functions of rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? Here you can write down any 2 out of them. And if we come to smooth endoplasmic reticulum, number 1, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, they can synthesize lipids including oils, steroids, and phospholipids. And they can metabolize carbohydrates. And they can produce transport vesicles to transport within the cell. And also they involve in detoxification, right? Detoxification. So they are these smooth endoplasmic reticulum are well developed in our liver cells because they can involve in detoxification. And the last one is stores calcium 2 plus ion. So if you have written any 2 functions out of those what I have read now, give 2 marks, right? Then Roman number 3, what is cell cycle? Now, cell cycle, it is the sequence of events. It is the sequence of events that takes place in the cell from the end of one cell division to the end of next cell division, right? Sequence. So your answer should include these words to get that mark. If any word is missing, then you won't get any marks, right? The sequence of events that takes place in the cell from the end of one cell division to the end of next cell division is called the cell cycle, right? So there are 2 types of cell divisions you have to learn in your syllabus: mitotic division and mitosis and meiosis, right? Roman number 4, state 2 differences between mitotic division of plants and animal cells. Now here we have to compare the mitotic division, mitosis, right? Mitosis that takes place in plants and animal cells. Now, if we take during this mitotic division, right, spindle will form, right? Do you know what is spindle? What is spindle? What are the things included in the spindle normally? What are the things included in the spindle? Hmm? Isn't there anyone like? Yeah, Esther. What else? What are the other things? Asters, spindle microtubules, and centrosomes. Right? Yes, very good. Now we can compare these two plant cells and animal cells from that point, right? Now, if we take the animal cells spindle include asters and centrioles. But in plant cells, they don't have centrioles. So there is no any aster, right? So the first difference is in plant cells, spindle do not include centrioles and asters, but in animal cell spindle, it includes centrioles and asters. Right? Now the next one. Think about the cell division, I mean the division of the cytoplasm. What is the structure formed during the division of cytoplasm of animal cell? What is the structure? Cleavage furrow. A cleavage furrow will form in the animal cell, but there is no such cleavage furrow formation in the plant cell, right? The cell plate divides the cytoplasm into two, but no cleavage furrow formation, right? In the plant cells, no cleavage furrow formation, right? Cell plate, in the plant cell plate will form, right? Cell plate will form as a result of vesicles produced by the Golgi apparatus. And after that, the cytoplasm will divide into two and generate two genetically identical daughter cells to the parent cell, right? But no cleavage furrow. So that is the second difference. Give 2 marks. Next one, state the 3 types of phosphorylation according to the energy source. What is phosphorylation? Phosphorylation කිව්වේ මොකක්ද? What is phosphorylation? Phosphorylation means the production of ATP, energy molecule, adenosine triphosphate, within the cell. It is called phosphorylation. According to the energy source, this phosphorylation can be divided into 3 groups. First one is photophosphorylation. Second one, substrate phosphorylation. And last one is oxidative phosphorylation. So you should write phosphorylation, substrate photophosphorylation, substrate phosphorylation, and oxidative phosphorylation. Right? In photophosphorylation, ATP is synthesized using solar energy in photosynthesis. Right here, even you can get that idea from the word photo. Right? Photo means solar energy is involved here. Second one is substrate phosphorylation. Substrate phosphorylation means the synthesis of ATP using energy released by breaking down of complex molecules into simple, small molecules. Right? You know, when large molecules break down into small molecules, and kind of energy is released. By using that energy, right, ATP is synthesized. So that process, the method of producing energy from that kind of process is called substrate phosphorylation. And the last one is oxidative. What is oxidative? Oxidative means synthesis of ATP using energy released as a result of oxidation of molecules. Oxidation, right? Give 3 marks. Then part C, Roman number 1. What is natural classification? So now this question is from the 3rd chapter, right? You learn about, under classification, you learn about 2 methods, artificial and natural classification. Before that, what is classification? Classification means the arrangement of organisms into groups on the basis of their common characteristics, right? That is called classification. So under that, there are 2 methods, artificial and natural classification. Artificial classification means grouping of organism based on few pre-selecting unifying characters. Right? It is the system that used before 18th century. Now here, what are the characteristics used here? Now, for example, if we take No, you don't have to write the definition, because here they are asking here they are asking us to write down the types of phosphorylations, right? I just explain, right? Then it is easy for you to memorize. When I explain you, then you can memorize that part. Here you should name it. What you have to do is just name those 3 types. You don't have to describe. You don't have to define it, right? Just write photophosphorylation, substrate phosphorylation, and oxidative phosphorylation, right? Now, if they have, now the next thing is they are asking like state the types, right? You can't write only 1 or 2. You have to write everything, right? Now here in the phosphorylation, you have only 3 methods. Now just think like now, for example, if we take characteristics of enzymes, not enzymes. Let's take something else. Yeah, something like that. Write down the characteristics of enzyme. Then you have to write down everything, because they don't specify like the number of characteristics they asking. So if you write just only 2, like the lines, if you write only 2 and 3, you will get only like 2 or 3 marks out of like 10 or 11 marks. Okay, there are some questions like that. Then write keyword, state the characteristics, right? Write the characteristics කියලා නිකන් තිබ්බොත් ඒ කොටසට තියෙන ඔක්කොම ටික ලියන්න බලන්න උතන. හරිද? රූල් 1යිද 2යිද තියෙන්නේ කියලා හිතන්න එපා. ඒ ටික ඔක්කොම උතන පුළුවන් විදිහට ලියන්න. Right? Okay? Right. If you have any questions, please type it on the chat and send me, right? Okay. Now, natural classification. Natural classification means it is the grouping based on the through relationship. Through relationship means like morphological. Morphological means external characteristics. Then anatomical. Anatomical means the internal tissue structures based on the internal tissue structures. Cytological. Cytological means the cellular structure. Then molecular biological structures such as DNA and RNA, base sequence. So classifying the organism based on those characteristics is called natural classification. For example, like if we classify organism like presence of wings, absence of wings, then both butterfly, crow, everyone, like they comes to the same group, right? But do they belong to the same group? No, they are completely different. Even though they have like wings like structures, right? They are different. Neither. So that is the problem, disadvantage with the artificial classification. Artificial classification එක මොකද නිකන් අර ඕගොල්ලෝ කට්ටිය බෙදනවා වගේ. පිටින් බලලා මෙයා හොඳයි, මෙයා නරකයි කියලා බෙදනවා වගේ වැඩක් තමයි artificial classification එකේ වෙන්නේ. But in the natural classification, the grouping is based on the through relationships, right? Like it represents the evolutionary relationship based on the phylogeny, right? Yes. So here, what is natural classification? The answer should be grouping organisms based on through relationships, right? ඔය වචන ටික හැමම තියෙන්න ඕනේ. එක වචනයක් හරි ලකුණු නැත්තම් no marks, right? හරිද? Grouping based on through relationships. Right? දැන් exam එකේ දුනා definitions ලියන්න යනවා. හරිද? ලියද්දි නිකන් උගලන්ට හිතනවා නම් මේ මොකද නැහැ කියලා. නිකන් වචන එකතු කර කර ලියන්න එපා අර පොඩි කාලේ. මේක මෙහෙම කියලා. එතකොට ලකුණු නැහැ. එක වචනයක් හරි නැත්තම් ලකුණු නැහැ. right? බොරුවට එහෙම දෙන්නට කාලේ නාස්ති කරන්න එපා. ලියනවා හරියට ඒක ලියන්න ඕනේ. right? ලියන්න ටයිම් තියනවා නම් අර බොරුවට වචන ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතෙන් හද ලියන්න එපා. You won't get marks. Right? You have to write the definition as it's given in the resource book. So here the answer should be grouping of organism based on through relationships, right? Give 1 mark. Yes. Next one. What is the main basis of present system of classification? What is the main basis of present system of classification? The answer should be rapid advance of molecular biology and the new information on evolution relationship of organism is the basis of present system of classification. Right? Okay. The answer should be rapid advance. That word is important. That is required, right? It's compulsory here. Rapid advance. If you have not mentioned that word, no marks. Rapid advance in molecular biology and new information on the evolutionary relationship of organisms. Right? Give 1 mark. Next one, state 3 significant features of seedless vascular plants. Now, if we take the seedless vascular plants under that topic, they have given like not only 3, right? They have given several features. But here they have specified, they're asking only 3. But like they have asked the question like state significant features of seedless vascular plants. Right? You can't write only three features and pretend. Like මෙතන rule 3යි තියෙන්නේ. හින්දා අපි 3ක් විතරක් ලියනවා කියලා එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. Right? You have to mention all those things. Then මෙතන තියෙන්නේ state 3. 3ක් අහලානේ තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් 3ක් විතරක් ලියලා ඔන්න shape වෙනවා. හැබැයි නිකන් තිබ්බොත් state significant features of seedless vascular plants කියලා අපිට තියෙනවා ඒක ඉගෙන ගන්න 4ක්. ඒ 4ම තියෙන්න ඕනේ. Right? 4ම ලියන්න ඕනේ. 4ම ලිව්වහම ඉතින් 4ට එකකට එක ගානේ තමයි ලකුණු හම්බ වෙන්නේ. හරිද? එතකොට 4ම ලිව්වේ නැත්නම් 4න් 3ක් තමයි මාක්ස් වලට හම්බ වෙන්නේ. Now here you can write first one transportation through xylem and phloem, right? Because they have vascular tissues, right? Seedless vascular. Second one evolution of roots. Right? Evolution of roots. So, roots, they are the organs that absorb water and nutrients from the soil. Right? See, if the plant have roots, they can anchor the plant and they can allow the shoot system to grow taller. නේද? ගහක මුල් පද්ධතියක් root system එකක් තියනවනේ root system එකෙන් මොකද කරන්නේ? ගහ පොළවේ කියන්නේ මේ පොළවට එක සම්බන්ධ කරනවා. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? ගහට හොඳට කියන්නේ shoot system එකට හොඳට උස යන්න පුළුවන්. ගිහිල්ලා හොඳට මොකද වෙන්නේ? Sunlight, they can absorb sunlight. Right? Yes. Then third one, evolution of leaves. Right? Evolution of leaves. And the fourth one, spore and sporophyll variation. Sporophylls and spore variation. You have to write down any 3 answers from those 4 which I mentioned now. Right? Give 3 marks. Okay? Your papers will be marked by our paper panel, right? Don't worry about that. Within the next week, we'll send you the marks. Then Roman number 4, state 2 characteristics of Gnetophyta, right? Gnetophyta, they belongs to which group? They are seed plants, right? Gnetophyta seed plants. So, can anyone give an example for a Gnetophyta plant? An example, please, for Gnetophyta, quickly. Neater, very good, neater, right? So, Gnetophyta or neater, they are the only gymnosperms which have vessels in xylem, right? They have xylem vessels. And the next thing is the leaves and fruits of these gymnosperms are similar to those of flowering plants or angiosperms. Okay? Fruits and seeds, fruits and leaves are similar to those of angiosperms. Give 2 marks. Roman number 5. State the animal phylum that shows following features for the first time during evolution. through coelom. කාටද through coelom එකක් තියෙන්නේ? Phylum Annelida. Right? Annelida. It should be Annelida, not Annelids. Annelids කියලා තිබ්බොත් no marks. Yes, leaves and seeds. Not seeds. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Leaves and seeds. Their leaves look like those of flowering plants, and their seeds look like fruits of angiosperms. හරිද? ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ගස්වල කොළ flowering plants වල කොළ වලට සමානයි. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ගස්වල තියෙන atta seeds, they are similar to the fruits of angiosperms. Okay? Right. Right. Next one. Through coelom Annelida. එතන annelids කියලා තිබ්බොත් no marks. Should be Annelida. Signs of cephalization. Signs of cephalization. Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes. Excretory structure. Again, platyhelminthes. 3 marks. Then what is radula? Where you can find this radula? What radula? Radula. Tell me in which phylum? In which phylum you can find radula? And Amra, do you have the PDF? Do you need that? If you need the paper, send me a message, right? Yeah, in the phylum mollusks, right? Mollusks have radula. So what is it? Radula, it is the minutely toothed chitinous ribbon in the mouth for feeding. That definition, it will get 3 marks. මෙන්න මේ points 3ම තියෙනවා නම් විතරයි ලකුණු හම්බෙන්නේ. Minutely toothed. චූටි දත් තියෙන. හරි? Chitinous ribbon, second one, chitinous ribbon in the mouth for feeding. For feeding. Minutely toothed chitinous ribbon in the mouth for feeding. Your definition should include all those 3 points, right? If any point is missing, no marks. This is why it's very difficult to score marks in the structured essay. Right now, if we take the bio paper, it is easy to score marks in the MCQ part and in the essay part. But in the structured essay, you have to write whatever the things given in the marking scheme. Right? So that means you have to practice more and more. Right? Okay. 3 marks. Then Roman number 7. What is the organ contributes to excrete uric acid in arthropods? What is it? Malphizian tubules. Malphizian tubules. Give 1 mark. Right. Now, you can total your marks out of 40 and multiply that one by 2.5. Then you can get marks out of 100. Right? Multiply by 2.5. Shall we move to next question? Question number 2. Others, only 2 people like responding. What about others? What about others? Any doubts from the first structured essay? Any doubts? No doubts. Right. Question number 2, part A. What is the cell type helps in phloem loading and unloading? That is companion cell. So this question is from the 4th unit, right? No, you don't have to mention like phylum Annelida, right? You can just write Annelida, right? Okay, Annelida. and platyhelminthes like that. Then, what is pressure flow described in angiosperms? So, the mechanism of not sieve tube elements, right? But like that is done by companion cells. Companion, අපි ඒවට කියනවා transfer cells. Companion cells also known as transfer cells, right? Okay. And next one, Roman number 2. What is the pressure flow described in angiosperms? Give 1 mark for the previous one. Give 1 mark for the answer. What is pressure flow? Right. Now the principle used or the hypothesis used in phloem translocation of angiosperm is pressure flow, right? Pressure flow. Yeah. The answer should be phloem sap moves from source to sink at a rate about 1 meter per hour and it moves by bulk flow driven by the positive pressure is known as pressure flow. Right, again, phloem sap moves from source to sink. කියන්නේ photosynthesis වෙන්නේ source එකකින් ගබඩා වෙන තැන sink එකට. From source to sink at a rate about 1 m per hour, 1 meter per hour, and it moves by how? By bulk flow, right? Not by diffusion, it moves by bulk flow driven by positive pressure is known as pressure flow. 2 marks. Source to sink, rate about 1 meter per hour by bulk flow and positive pressure. Your answer should include those words, right? එකක් හරි missing na, no marks. Okay. Then Roman number 3. Roman number 3. What is the main difference of phloem sap compared to the xylem sap? Now, if we take xylem sap means like in the xylem tissue, it transport water and minerals, right? Phloem tissue, it transport what? Food, right? Phloem tissue transport the products of photosynthesis, again glucose. And that is called phloem translocation. Now, xylem sap, it consists of water and dissolved minerals. In the xylem sap in the movement of the xylem sap movement, that process is accent of xylem sap, right? The hypothesis used to explain accent of xylem sap is cohesion and tension hypothesis. Xylem sap, the accent of xylem sap is explained by cohesion and tension hypothesis, and translocation of phloem sap is explained by pressure flow hypothesis. හරිද? අරගේ තියෙන්නේ cohesion and tension, මේකේ තියෙන්නේ pressure flow. හරිද? ඒවා මතක තියාගන්න. In the exam, they can ask the differences between the cohesion and tension hypothesis and like they can ask what are the differences between accent of xylem sap and translocation of phloem sap. So you can mention like those two hypotheses. The accent of xylem sap is described by cohesion and tension hypothesis, and the phloem translocation is explained by pressure flow hypothesis. Anyway, now here they are asking, what is the main difference of phloem sap compared to the xylem sap? So I told you, in the xylem sap, accent of xylem sap takes place through the xylem vessels. Xylem vessels, what they do? They transport water and minerals. So xylem sap, it contains mainly water and dissolved minerals. But phloem sap, right? What it do? It transport the products of photosynthesis. So it includes sucrose, right? It contains sucrose by 30% of its weight. Phloem sap එකෙන් 30% මොනවද තියෙන්නේ? sucrose. Right? Xylem sap එකෙන් phloem sap එක වෙනස් වෙන්නේ ඔන්න ඔය හින්දා. Other than that, it also contain amino acids, hormones and minerals. Right? So here the answer should be phloem sap contains 30% sucrose by its weight and also contain amino acids, hormones and minerals. Right? Then what is stoma or stomata? Stomata කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලායි අහන්නේ. Stomata. Even you can get an essay from that part. Stomatal transpiration and structure of stomata. So guess point. Guess essay this time, right? Stomata, they are microscopic pores surrounded by guard cells in the epidermis of the leaves and stems of plants, which can open and close. Now, stomata, they are specialized epidermal cells. Stomata also epidermal cells, but they are specialized. What are the two? Why is it specialized? Stomata කියන්නේ epidermal cells ජාතියක්. ඇයි ඒක specialized වෙන්නේ? දැන් මෙතන අහලා නැහැ. ඒ වගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් අහන්න පුළුවන්. ඇයි ඒක specialized වෙන්නේ? Yes. Send your answers, please. Why is it specialized? Why stomata special? Why is it called like specialized epidermal cells? Aisha, Ilma, ඉන්නවද? Modified or specialized, modified epidermal cells. Yes, very good. They have distinct shape. And what is the other reason? What is the other reason? Contain chloroplast. Very good. They have distinct shape and they contain chloroplast. So they are called like guard cells. They are specialized or modified epidermal cells. The other epidermal cells, they don't contain chloroplast and or distinct shape. Right? Yes. So here the answer should be microscopic pores surrounded by guard cells, right? Surrounded by guard cells in the epidermis of, like, not the stomata. Guard cells are the specialized epidermal cells, right? Did I tell you like stomata? Not stomata. Stomata කියන්නේ අර හැදෙන කුහරයට. ඒක හදන කුහරය තමයි guard cells. Guard cells, they are being in shape, right? Guard cells are specialized or modified epidermal cells, right? Microscopic pores surrounded by guard cells in the epidermis of the leaves and stems of plants, which can open and close, right? Give 1 mark. Roman number 5. Briefly explain the mechanism of opening of stomata according to K plus influx hypothesis. Right? The mechanism of opening and closing of stomata is explained by K plus influx hypothesis. Right? Yeah. For the Roman number 4, the answer should be microscopic pores surrounded by guard cells in the epidermis of the leaves and stem of plants, which can open and close. Microscopic pores surrounded by guard cells in the epidermis of the leaves and stems of plants, which can open and close. Right? Roman number 5. Briefly explain the mechanism of opening of stomata according to K plus influx hypothesis. Right. Then බලන්න මෙතන. Briefly explain. You have to explain. Like, you can't write the answer in one sentence. එක sentence එකෙන් මෙතන උත්තරේ දීලා හරියනවද? Right? ලකුණු හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හම්බ වෙයි. තියෙන ගානේ චූට්ටක්. Right? දැන් ඔන්න ලොකු rules ගානක් තියෙනවා. Right. So, before now I'll explain you what's happening here, right? So now, the stomatal opening and closing, it is depend on the changes of the turgidity of guard cells. Turgidity. නිකන් හිතන්න අර නිකන් බැලුන් එකකට වතුර පිම්බුවම පිරෙවුවම මොකද වෙන්නේ? නිකන් තද ගතියක් එනවනේ turgidity. Right? Here water flows into the cell by which method? By osmosis. Right? When water flows into the guard cells, right, through osmosis, the turgidity, it increases. It increases. And they get expand. Expand. But they don't expand uniformly in all directions, right? This is not the answer. I'm just explaining. So listen. Now, the stomatal opening and closing. Stomata means the pore, like it is a pore, right, which is surrounded by two guard cells. The opening and the closing of stomata, it is depend on the changes that happen in the turgidity of the guard cells. When water flows into the guard cells by osmosis, the diffusion වලින් නෙමෙයි වතුර ඇතුළට එන්නේ, මොනවාද bulk flow එකෙන් නෙමෙයි, imbibition වලින් නෙමෙයි, එන්නේ osmosis වලින්, right? Osmosis. It is an MCQ point, හරි? When water flows into the guard cells, what happens? The turgidity increases. When the turgidity increases, they expand, but they don't expand uniformly in all directions. ඇයි සමානව හැම පැත්තම මේ expand වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඇයි ඒක inner walls, they are relatively inelastic than the outer walls. හරිද? නිකන් අර පෝ එක ඇතුලේ තියෙන inner wall එක ඒක inelastic. එතකොට මේ අනිත් කට්ටිය ඇදෙනකොට මේක මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේක bend වෙනවා. As a result, what happens? That pore opens. Right? And in the other way around, if the guard cells they lost water, what happens? Turgidity decreases and the inner walls become straighter, and as a result, the pore will close. Right? Now, this mechanism is explained by K plus influx hypothesis. Right? Now, how this water comes into the cell? ඇයි මේ කොහෙවත් තියෙන වතුර guard cells ඇතුළට එන්නේ? Right? හේතුවක් තියෙනවනේ ඇතුළට එන්න එළියට යන්න. මේක ඇතුළට එන්න හේතුව තමයි, right? During the daytime, right? During the daytime, ඒ කියන්නේ ඉරේලිය තියෙන වෙලාවට guard cells they can actively accumulate K pluses. Actively accumulate කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? This consumes energy. මෙතන actively accumulate කියන්නේ K plus ටික accumulate කරන්න ඒගොල්ලන්ට මොනවද ඕනි? ATP ඕනි. හරිද? ATP ඕනි. So guard cells actively accumulate K plus from neighboring epidermal cells. When K plus accumulate in the guard cells, what will happen? Solute potential එක වැඩි වෙනවා නේද? K plus කියන්නේ solute එක. Solute potential, when the solute potential increases, what happens to the water potential? Water potential decreases, right? Solute potential එක වැඩි වෙනකොට water potential decreases. දැන් ඔන්න guard cells ඇතුලේ එහෙනම් වතුර තියෙන ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? වැඩි තැන ඉඳන් තමයි අඩු තැනට එන්නේ. From high water potential to low water potential. Water will move, right? So inflow of water takes place by osmosis from the surrounding epidermal cells. ඒ කියන්නේ අර guard cells cover කරගෙන ඉන්න අනිත් epidermal cells තියෙනනේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගාව තියෙන water potential එක වැඩි අර guard cell ට වඩා. එහෙනම් ඒගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? මේ අර වතුර guard cell එකක් ඇතුළට එවනවා. By which process? By osmosis. Right? So as a result of that, the turgor pressure of the guard cells increases and the pores will open. The stomata will open. Right. Here the answer should be, now we have to explain the K plus influx mechanism, right? K plus influx hypothesis. First point, during the daytime, guard cells actively accumulate K plus from neighboring epidermal cells, right? During the daytime, guard cells actively accumulate. Actively කියන්නේ it consumes energy. ATP use කරලා තමයි මේ accumulate කරගන්නේ. හරි? During the daytime, guard cells actively accumulate K plus from neighboring epidermal cells. Second point, as a result, solute potential increases. As a result, solute potential increases. Number 3, water potential decreases. Solute potential increases and water potential decreases. Next point. This leads to the inflow of water by osmosis from surrounding epidermal cells. Right? This leads to the inflow of water by osmosis from surrounding epidermal cells. Next point. As a result, turgor pressure in guard cells increases. As a result, turgor pressure in guard cells increases. Next point, thus opening stomata. Thus opening stomata. Next point, when guard cells lost K plus to neighboring epidermal cells, when guard cells lost K plus to neighboring epidermal cells, it leads to exosmosis of water from guard cells. Now here they have asked only about the opening of stomata. But we have to mention about the closing of stomata also, right? Right? When guard cells lost K plus to neighboring epidermal cells, it leads to exosmosis of water from the guard cells. Next point, last point. As a result, turgor pressure in guard cells decreases, closing stomata. As a result, the turgor pressure in guard cells decrease, closing stomata. There are 8 points here, right? Points at active. So you will get marks out of 8, right? Let me know how many marks you got out of 8 for this question, please. Quickly. Send your marks in the chat. If you want to repeat the answer, tell me. 4, 4. What about others? Binath 5. Winnie 4. Yes. එච්චරද කට්ටිය අනිත් කට්ටිය? Ilma? Aisha? And කීයද? The ලියුවේ නැද්ද? Hubs. Yeah, I could. Yeah, Ilma didn't write the answer. Okay. What about Aisha? Aisha? Right. Okay, I'll repeat the answer. දැන් මෙතන අනිත් එක තමයි මේ වගේ එකක් ලියන්න ගියාම දැන් වැරදුනා කියලා හිතමු. අර පේපරේ පුරා ඊතල දාලා එහෙම මෙහෙන් ගහලා උත්තර ලියන්න එපා. හරිද? ඒවා බලන්නෙත් නැහැ සමහර වෙලාවට. අර ඔයගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ මේ දැන් ඉඩමදි වෙනවා. ඉඩමදි වුණාම මොකද කරන්නේ? මෙතනින් දානවා ලොකු ඇරෝ එකක් මෙහෙන් දාලා මෙන්න මෙහි උත්තරේ තියෙනවා කියලා ලියනවා. ඔය බලන්නෙත් නැහැ සමහර වෙලාවට. එහෙනම් පුළුවන් තරම් ඉඩ මැනේජ් කරගෙන ලියන්න. හරි? අනිත් එක තමයි you can't attach separate papers for the structured one. You have to write the answers on paper itself. Other thing is දැන් මේ වගේ question එකක් ඇහුවම ඔය විදිහට points ටික කඩලා ලියන්න. Then it is easy for the examiner නේ. Right? එතකොට marks අනිවාර්යෙන් හම්බ වෙනවා. තේරුණාද? අනික දැන් ඔය papers බලන්නේ ඔක්කොම they are not very fluent in English. Right? තේරෙන විදිහට ඒවා කඩලා හරියට ලියන්න. Right? නැත්තම් ඔයගලන්ට තමයි අවාසිය. Didn't write. Okay. Write down. I'll repeat the answer one more time. First point, during the daytime, the guard cells actively accumulate K plus from neighboring epidermal cells. During the daytime, the guard cells actively accumulate K plus from neighboring epidermal cells. Number 2, as a result, solute potential increases. Solute potential increases. Number 3, water potential decreases. Water potential decreases. Number 4, this leads to the inflow of water. This leads to the inflow of water by osmosis from surrounding epidermal cells. This leads to the inflow of water by osmosis from surrounding epidermal cells. Next point. As a result, turgor pressure in guard cells increases. As a result, turgor pressure in guard cells increases. Okay. Next point. Thus opening stomata. Thus opening stomata. Next point. When guard cells lost K plus, when guard cells lost K plus to the neighboring epidermal cells, it leads to exosmosis of water from guard cells. It leads to exosmosis of water from guard cells. As a result, the turgor pressure in guard cells decreases, closing stomata. As a result, the turgor pressure in guard cells decreases, closing stomata. Okay. Shall we move to next one? Right. What are known as essential elements in plants? Essential elements and non-essential elements. Essential elements, right? Now, for the plant's nutrition, they need like different like nutrients. Now, essential elements. Before that, what is the nutrition? What is the nutrition in plants? It is the process of acquiring raw materials and energy from the environment for the metabolic activities of organism. Plants need nutrition for their growth, development and reproduction, right? ලොකු වෙන්නයි, වර්ධනය වෙන්නයි, reproduction වලටයි. වර්ගය බෝ කරන්නයි, right? Growth, development, reproduction. Right. And there are like modes of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition, under that like symbiosis. And there are like special modes of nutrition, carnivorous plants, those are given, right? You can study them later. Now, essential elements. Essential essential elements which are required for a plant to complete its life cycle and produce another generation. Right? Essential elements elements which are required for a plant to complete its life cycle and produce another generation. Yage life cycle එක complete කරන්නයි අලුත් පරපුරක් බිහි කරන්නයි අවශ්‍ය වෙන දේවල් තමයි elements. Essential elements කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒකට අවශ්‍ය elements වලට අපි කියනවා essential element. So your answer should include to complete its life cycle and second one to produce another generation. Right? Okay? Give 2 marks. දෙකම තියනවා නම් ලකුණු දෙකක් දෙන්න. Right. Then part B. Number 1. Name the plant genus or genera having following features. Right? So here they are asking about the phylum. Phylum එක ගැන තමයි මේ අහන්නේ. Seedless plants with heterospory. Like genus කිව්වම නමින් කියන්න ඕනි. Sorry. එයාගේ scientific name එක ලියන්න ඕනි. තේරුණාද? Not the phylum. Scientific name, sorry. So here the scientific name should be italicized or underlined. Underline කරලා තියෙන්න ඕනි. When handwritten, it should be underlined. එහෙනම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ paper එකේ ලියුවා මොකද කරන්න ඕනි? ඔයගොල්ලෝ italics කරන්න යන්න එපා. You can't do that නේ. You have to underline that one. So here, seedless plant with heterospory. What is it? Selaginella, right? Selaginella. Vascular plants with independent female gametophyte, again Selaginella. Plants with independent male and female sporophyte, Secus. Right? 3 marks. Give 3 marks. Next one. Cross-pollination. What is cross-pollination? Cross-pollination means Transfer of pollen grain from an anther of the flower to a mature stigma. Mature stigma. Nikang stigma කියලා ලිව්වොත් no marks. Mature stigma of a different flower of a different plant of the same species. Right? Transfer of a pollen grain from an anther of the flower to a mature stigma of a different flower of the same species is called cross-pollination. Give 2 marks. Roman number 3, state the significance of cross-pollination. State the significance. Right? They are not asking 1, 2 or 3. You have to state whatever the things given in the resource book. Because they are giving marks for all those points. Right? ඕකට තිබ්බ වෙනම පොඩි ඡේදයක්. හරිද? ඒකේ තිබ්බ ටික තමයි උතන ලියවෙන්න ඕනි resource එකේ තිබ්බ. First one. Cross pollination results in cross fertilization, right? Cross pollination results in cross fertilization. Second one. Allow suppling of genes within the species. Allow suppling of genes within the species. Third one, producing new genetic combination. Producing new genetic combinations. Next one, resulting increased genetic variations within the species. Resulting increased genetic variations within the species. Next one, important for survival. And next one, leads to evolution. Leads to evolution. 6 marks. Let me know how many marks you got out of 6. Quickly. ලකුණු 6ක්. One. Should be Uvini. What about Binath? Ilma? Aisha? And the other one is Hafsana. I can't pronounce that name. I don't know whether it's correct or not. Binath 5, good. Ilma 3. What about Aisha? Who is this SP 23112? Is it Aisha? ඔක්කොගේ නම් කිව්වේ නැතුණත් මාක්ස් කියන්න මට මතකයි ගේව කියනවා. Right. Okay. Do you want to repeat it? Right. First one. Cross-pollination results in cross-fertilization. Right? Making essay question එකක් දෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Right? නිකන් essay එකේ part A එකට වගේ explain the significance of cross-pollination. ඔය වගේ එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. For the essay part. Right? First one, cross-pollination results in cross-fertilization. Second one, allow suppling of genes within the species. Third one, producing new genetic combinations. Fourth one, resulting increased genetic variations within the species. Next one, important for survival. And last one, leads to evolution. Okay, shall we move to next one? Right. What is polyallelism? Right, that is from, now these questions are from the 6th unit, genetics lesson making. Polyallelism, presence of multiple alleles for a single genetic locus, a phenomenon where certain traits are determined by the combination of more than two types of alleles. Presence of multiple alleles for a single genetic locus, a phenomenon where certain traits are determined by the combination of more than two types of alleles. Give 1 mark. Right? Give 1 mark. Right. Next one. Name the alleles for a single locus which determine A, B, or blood groups in humans. One other. IA, IB, and simple line. හරිද? IA, IB, and simple line. Give 1 mark. තුනම ලියලා තියෙනවා නම් එක ලකුණක් දෙන්න. Right. Next one. State the possible blood groups of children resulting from a marriage between individuals with A, B, and O blood groups. එක parent කෙනෙක්ට තියෙන AB blood groups එකලු අනිත් එක්කෙනා O blood group එක. ඒ දෙන්නට ඉපදෙන ළමයින්ගේ තියෙන පුළුවන් blood groups මොනවද කියලා තමයි අපෙන් අහන්නේ. Right? කොහොමද ඕක කරන්නේ? Right. Give me a second, I'll show the method. Now look at this one. Can you see the picture? Can you see this diagram? පේනවද? ඔය මං කලින් ලිව්ව එකක් වෙලා යන හින්දා මං කලින් ඇන්දෝක. හරිද? Now here this is the parent who have AB blood group. එයාගේ තියෙන genotype එක තමයි මේ ලියලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ තියෙන්නේ O කියන phenotype එක පෙන්නන parent ගේ genotype එක. එතකොට මේගොල්ලන්ගේ genes ඒ කියන්නේ මේවා වෙන් වෙනකොට මෙන්න මේ විදිහට වෙන් වෙනවා. Right? Okay? එතකොට මෙතන IA ඇලීල් එක තියෙනවා, මෙයාගේ IB තියෙනවා, මෙතන I. දෙන්න ජොයින් වෙන හිතන්න මෙයා father, මෙයා mother. දෙන්න cross වෙනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? මෙයාගෙන් එකයි, මෙයාගෙන් එකයි එනවා. එහෙනම් මෙතන IA and I ආවහම මොකද වෙන්නේ? මොකක්ද එහෙනම් blood group එක? A blood group. ඊළඟට ආපහු වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? A blood group. මෙතනින් එනවා B blood group, B blood group. එහෙනම් එන්න පුළුවන් blood groups දෙකයි. මේ දෙන්නට ඉපදෙන ළමයින්ට එන්න පුළුවන් blood group එක්ක A, එක්ක B. හරි? එක්ක A, එක්ක B. So A and B blood groups. Okay? Right. A and B blood groups. Give 2 marks. 2 marks. Next question. What is the percentage of hemophilic patients who be resulted from a marriage between a hemophilic male and a carrier female? Hemophilic කියන්නේ hemophilic කියන ලෙඩේ පේන්නේ කොහොමද? ඒක X recessive එකක්. හරිද? මෙන්න මෙහෙමයි ඒක වෙන්නේ. right. මේ තියෙන්නේ hemophilic male කියන්නේ deceased male කෙනෙක්ගේ මෙතන යාගේ X chromosome එක simple recessive. අපි simple returns වලින් පෙන්නන්නේ recessive නේ. ඒක recessive වුණාම අන්න යා deceased වෙනවා. right? දැන් මෙයා carrier female කෙනෙක්. මොකද මෙයාගේ එකක් තියෙනවා capital H. අනිත් එක නා simple H. එතකොට dominant වෙන්නේ මෙයානේ. right? ඒක එයාගේ යට වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. එයාට ලෙඩේ නෑ. හැබැයි එයා කවුද? වාහකේ carrier කෙනෙක්. එයා ලෙඩේ අරගෙන යනවා. right? එතකොට ඒ දෙන්නගේ මෙන්න මේ විදිහට වෙන් වෙලා එතකොට ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඉපදෙන ළමයි. බලන්න. මෙතනින් හැදෙන පළවෙනි එක්කෙනා එයා carrier female කෙනෙක්. මේ XX නේ. right. ඊළඟ එක්කෙනා එයා recessive. එහෙනම් එයා deceased female කෙනෙක්. hemophilic female. බලන්න ඊට පස්සේ male කෙනෙක්, healthy male කෙනෙක් and a deceased male. එහෙනම් මෙතන අහන්නේ which ratio? Deceased female and carrier female and deceased male. හතරෙන් දෙන්නෙක් ඒ විදිහට එනවා. එහෙනම් what is the percentage? 50%. 50%. Can you understand that one? If you need, you can copy down this one. Right? Then it is easy for you to understand. Okay? Copy down quickly. If you have any questions, please ask. Any doubts? No. Right? Finish. Shall we move to next one? Shall we move to next one? Finish. Tell me yes or no. No. No, you don't have to show that gamete formation, right? But to get the answer, you have to do it on a rough paper. ඔය හරි ඔක කරන්න ඕනි. නැත්තම් උත්තරේ එන්නේ නැහනේ. ගන්න විදිය තමයි මං කියලා දුන්නේ. නැත්තම් මං නිකන් if I give you the answer like 50% කොහෙන් ආපු එකක්ද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. Right? This is the method. එතකොට ඔය වගේ question එකක් આવොත් you have to work out like this, right? You don't have to do it on the paper, right? They are just asking the percentage. You can do it on a rough paper. Okay, Winnie, okay. Finish? Right. What about others? Right. Okay. Next one. Roman number 5. It's 1 mark, right? 1 mark, okay? Then Roman number 5, state the condition that maintain Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, right? So they have not specified, they are not asking like whether they have not given the number of conditions. So you have to state everything, right? There are 5 conditions given in the resource book. What are those 5 conditions? Absence of mutations. Mutations in the back. Occurrence of random mating. It's the second one. Absence of natural selection. Size of population is extremely large, right? Population එක ගොඩාක් ලොකු වුණොත් එක්කෙනෙක්ට වෙන දෙයකින් චුට්ටක්වත් ඒ කියන්නේ මේ පොඩ්ඩක්වත් ඒක affect වෙන්නේ නැහැ නේද? හැබැයි දෙන්නෙක් තුන් දෙනෙක් ඉන්න තැන එක්කෙනෙක්ට මොකක් හරි වුණොත් ඒක affect වෙනවා. Right? Size of population is extremely large, and the last one is absence of immigration and emigrations. 5 marks. Right? Yes. Next one. What is the difference between inbreeding and outbreeding? මේවා තියෙන්නේ මොකේද? genetics වල අර අන්තිමට මොගොල්ලෝ ආසම නැති පිටු ටික තියෙන්නේ අන්න ඒවා තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න. එතනින් ගත්ත ඒවා. Right? මේ ප්‍රශ්න අරන් තියෙන්නේ from the final pages of that lesson. Inbreeding means the breeding that takes place among genetically similar individuals. Right? Outbreeding means the breeding that takes place between plants and animals of different breeds, different races, right? Outbreeding means the breeding that takes place between different breeds or races of plants or animals. 2 marks. Roman number 7, Gigas effect. Gigas effect means the increase of plant organs caused by large number of copies. අර ගස්වල නිකන් අර නිකන් 아무තු ගෙඩි වගේ ඇවිත් තියලා දැක්ලා ඇති කඳවල වල. That is due to the Gigas effect, right? Increasement in plant organs caused by large number of copies. 1 mark. Then next one, Roman number 7, give one example for transgenic plant varieties, right? Papaya resistant to ring spot virus, and the second one, golden rice. You have to mention only one, right? There are two transgenic plant varieties, papaya resistant to spot virus and golden rice. They can clear then give 1 mark. Right? You can so the marks are given out of 40, multiplied by 2.5, then you can get the number of marks you got out of 100. You can convert it to 100, right? Okay. Then, shall we move to question number 3? Quickly. Yeah. Any doubts? Gigas effect, increasement in plant organs caused by large number of copies. Here the index number is P23105. What is your name? I can't remember the name. Rashida. Okay. What happened to you? You left the meeting, ne? ටිකක් miss වුණා නේද? You can watch the recording, right? Okay. Now we'll move to the question number 3, structured essay 3 එක. Right, okay. State the main functions of an epithelial tissue. Then now this question is from the 5th unit. 5th unit එකේ අර මුලින්ම තියෙන tissues අන්න ඒකේ. Epithelial tissue, there are 3 functions given. So you have to state all those 3 functions. Protection, secretion, and absorption. Give 3 marks. Protection, secretion, absorption. Right? Roman number 2, part A. Roman number 2, name the type of tissue found in following location. Right? So there are different types of epithelial tissues. Like there are simple and compound epithelia. Then it can be also divided into several like different types of epithelial tissues. So what is the type of epithelial tissue found in intestinal lining? හරිද? දැන් ඔය ටික පාඩම් කරන්න you can make a table. Table එකක් හදාගන්න පුළුවන්. තියෙන layers ගන්න ඊට පස්සේ ඒකේ structure එක ඊට පස්සේ තියෙන තැන සහ and ඒකේ يعني table එකක් හදලා ඔය ටික පාඩම් කරන්න. epithelial tissues ටික. හරි? intestinal lining ඒකේ තියෙන simple columnar epithelium. Simple columnar epithelium 1 mark. Then lining of mouth, right? Lining of mouth, vagina. තියෙන මොනවද? Stratified squamous epithelium. Stratified squamous epithelium. 1 mark. Okay. Then Roman number 3, except water, state the 3 main constituent compounds of gastric juice and give the cell type responsible for secreting each of them. Right? Yes. First one, pepsinogen. Right? Then gastric juice, there are 3 main constituents. Pepsinogen, HCl, and mucus. Gastric juice. Pepsinogen is secreted by chief cells. The pepsinogen, it is secreted as in the inactive form. Pepsinogen should be converted into pepsine. Pepsine will convert karanawa HCl wali. Another pepsinogen. Then HCl is secreted by parietal cells. Parietal cells. Mucus is secreted by mucus cells. 6 marks. Right? එකකට එක ගානේ ලකුණු 6ක්. Next one. Right. Next question, it is from the circulatory system. What is known as single circulation found in an animal? In a complete circulation through the entire body, blood passes through the heart only once. In a complete circulation through the entire body, but blood passes through the heart only once. Give 1 mark. Okay. Next one. What are the 2 circuits operating in the human blood circulatory system? Pulmonary circuit and systemic circuit. 2 marks. Then, state the characteristics of an effective respiratory surface. මේක අදලා තියෙන්නේ මොනවද? respiratory system එකේ. හරි? මුළු syllabus එකෙම තියෙනවා ප්‍රශ්න. State the characteristics of an effective respiratory surface. මොනවද? ඒකෙත් අපිට දීලා තිබ්බා 4ක්. right? 4ම ලියන්න. එතකොට තමයි ලකුණු හම්බ වෙන්නේ. ඔක්කොම කියලා state, write කිව්වම ඔක්කොම ටික ලියන්න. ගාන දීලා නැත්තම්. First one, it must be permeable and wet so that gases can pass through by dissolving. It must be permeable and wet so that gases can pass through by dissolving. Next one, it must be thin because diffusion is only efficient over short distances. It must be thin because diffusion is only efficient over short distances. Next one, it should possess a large surface area to allow a sufficient volume of gases to be exchanged according to the organism's need. Last one, it should possess a good blood supply, right? Must be permeable and wet, should be thin, there should be a large surface area, and should possess a good blood supply. 4 marks. Previous question means which one? Which one? For the 2 systems, pulmonary circuit and systemic circuit. Okay, pulmonary circuit and systemic circuit. Yeah, you are getting marks, right? So if you wrote only 3, then you are getting 3 marks out of 4. That is depending. හරිද? Right. Next one, Roman number 2. What is the impact of carbon monoxide present in tobacco smoke to the body? Right? You know, like there are like nicotine, like those kind of harmful substances in tobacco smoke. Now here the question is about carbon monoxide. Right? So carbon monoxide absorbs into the blood and is able to bind to hemoglobin. Better than oxygen. දැන් ඔය මේ hemoglobin කියන එක නා හරි නරකයි. දැන් එයා ගෙනියන්න ඕනි ඔක්සිජන්. හැබැයි එයා හරි ආසයි ගිහින් කාබන් මොනොක්සයිඩ්ව අල්ලගන්න. right? කාබන් මොනොක්සයිඩ් ගේ තියෙන එකක් තමයි දැන් ඔක්සිජන් නම් ඔක්සිජන් කාබන් ඩයොක්සයිඩ් කියන අය හිමොග්ලොබින්ට බයින්ඩ් වුණාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ වැඩේ කරගත්තා. ඒගොල්ලෝ අතහැරලා ගියා. right? But this carbon monoxide is not like that. අල්ලගත්තොත් අල්ලගත්තමයි. හරිද? එයා අතහැරලා යන්නේ නැහැ. හරිද? අන්න ඒක තමයි carbon monoxide ගේ තියෙන නරකයි. හරිද? Carbon monoxide absorb into blood and is able to bind hemoglobin better than oxygen. Oxygen ට වඩා හොඳට hemoglobin ට bind වෙන්න පුළුවන් ability එකක් carbon monoxide ට තියෙනවා. And it is that combination is irreversible. හරි? ඒ කියන්නේ එයා අතහැරලා යන්නේ නැහැ. කේට ගැහි ඒ කියන්නේ අල්ලගෙනම ඉන්නවා hemoglobin එක. Right? Then it decreases the amount of oxyhemoglobin produced. Right? It decreases the amount of oxyhemoglobin produced. And oxygen transportation through blood is decreased. හරිද? දැන් මෙයා ඔක්සිජන් මේ hemoglobin අල්ලගත්තොත් අතාරින්නේ නැහැනේ. අතාරින්න නැතුණා මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර ඔක්සිජන් ගෙනියන්න ඉන්න hemoglobin ගාන අඩු වෙනවා. හරිද? hemoglobin ගාන අඩු වෙනවා. ඒ ගාන අඩු වෙනවා කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? oxyhemoglobin ගාන හැදෙන ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙනවා. හරිද? එහෙනම් අපේ blood වල oxygen transportation එක decrease වෙනවා. right? හරිද? 3 marks. Give 3 marks. If you want me to repeat the answer, let me know. Shall we move to next one? Finish? Okay, what about others? Binath, Winnie, Ilma, and Rashida, Hafsana. I don't know. I don't know whether my pronunciation is correct or not, right? If it is wrong, right? Very sorry. Excuse me, right? Oh, thanks. Done. Others? Binath and Winnie, finish? Right. What about Winnie? Finish? Sorry. Okay, we'll move to next question. Right. Name the cell types contribute to internal defenses in innate immunity. Now, this question is from the immunity system, right? Immunity. Name the cell types contribute to the internal defenses. Natural killer cells and phagocytic cells, right? Phagocytic cells, there are two types, neutrophils and macrophages. And natural killer cells, give 2 marks. Next one, state 1 autoimmune disease of human, right? There are 3. In the resource book, they have given 3. Type 1 diabetes mellitus, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, right? Now here they are asking the cells, right? Only cells. In a natural killer cells and phagocytic cells. You can't write antimicrobial proteins. Cells ගැන යහන්නේ. එහෙනම් cells ලියන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? Rashida, okay? Right. State in correct sequence the main parts of human nephron are. Now this kind of questions. දැන් මේක ලියද්දී මැද ඔයා ඔක්කොම හරියට ලියලා කොයි හරි මැදින් එකක් වැරදුනා කියන්න. හරිද? එක link එකක් හරි වැරදුනොත් you won't get marks. අනිත් ඔක්කොම කොච්චර හරි වුණත් ලකුණු හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. No. Minus marks එන්නේ නැහැ. එතන answers හම්බෙන්නේ ජාති ඔක්කොම ටික ලියලා නේද? So you have written all 3. Name the cell types contribute to the internal defenses in innate immunity. No minus marks, right? එතන minus marks ඕනේ. Now, Roman number 5. State in correct sequence the main parts of human nephron. එහෙනම් මොකෙන්ද පටන් ගන්නෙ? Glomerulus, right? Then arrowhead එකක් දාන්න Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, then descending limb of loop of Henle, then tip of loop of Henle, then ascending limb of loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule. හරිද? මෙතන collecting duct කියලා ලිව්වොත් no marks. Glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, descending limb of loop of Henle, tip of loop of Henle, ascending limb of loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule. 1 mark. Any doubts? Collecting duct කියන එක අයිති වෙන්නේ human nephron එකට. Yeah. Glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, descending limb of loop of Henle, tip of loop of Henle, ascending limb of loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, right? Rashida, yes. If you have written only loop of Henle, yes, give marks. But next time, ලියද්දී ඔය මේ විදියට ඔක්කොම ටික ලියන්න. හරි? වෙන වෙනම ලියන්න. That's better. Roman number 6. What is the hormone responsible for increasing water reabsorption within the kidney? That is antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone. Give 1 mark. Part C, Roman number 1. State 2 differences between sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves. Right? Then, මෙතන ADH, okay. හරි, කවන්න. මෙතන, we have to compare one. The nerves, not the sympathetic system and parasympathetic nervous system. Here they are asking about the nerves. Did anyone mention about, right? About norepinephrine? Did anyone write about norepinephrine? Right? The neurotransmitter? neurotransmitter එක අරගෙන compare කරාද දෙකේ? කියන්න. In sympathetic nerves, neurotransmitter secreted is norepinephrine and the other one is acetylcholine. කවුරු හරි ඒක ලියුවද? No one. මං අහන්නේ did you compare the two neurotransmitters here? Now here they are asking the differences name. So now if we take the sympathetic nervous system, what is the neurotransmitter? That is norepinephrine. And in the parasympathetic nervous system, it is acetylcholine. No, right. Yeah. Then what I need to highlight here is, if you mention about neurotransmitter, then it is incorrect. Because why? Here we have to compare the nerves, not the nervous system. එහෙනම් neurotransmitters compare කළා හරියනවද නැහැ. අපි compare කරන්න ඕනේ nerves විතරයි. Right. So first one, in the sympathetic nerves exist only from the spinal cord. ඒක කොහොමද මතක තියාගන්නේ? Sympathetic nerves කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Fight or flight නේ නේද? ගහ ගන්නවා නැත්නම් දුවනවා. එතකොට දැන් ඔන්න බල්ලෙක් හරි මොකක් හත පිච්චෙනවා කියලා හිතන්න. දැන් ඕක ඔය ස්ටිමියුලි එක බ්‍රේන් එකට ගිහිල්ලා එන්න ගියාම කාලේ වැඩි. තේරුණාද? බ්‍රේන් එකට ගියොත් කියයි අයියෝ මං ඔයාලට කියලා තියෙනනේ අත පුච්ච ගන්න ඔතන ගින්දරට අත දාන්න එපා කිව්වා කියලා. right නෑ. මේක ඉන්ස්ටන්ට්ලි වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉක්මනට වෙන්න ඕනේ. එහෙනම් sympathetic nerve system එකේ වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? fight or flight. ඉක්මනට වෙන්න ඕනේ. හින්දා මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? ඔක්කොම stimuli ඔක්කොම අරන් යන්නේ කොහටද? spinal cord එකට විතරයි. ඉක්මනට action එකක් එතනදී වෙන්නේ. brain එකට අරන් ගිහිලා process වෙනකොට වෙන්න ඕනේ දේවල් වෙලා ඉවරයි. එතන ඉක්මනට instantly වෙන්න ඕනේ හින්දා spinal cord එකට තමයි sympathetic nerves spinal cord එකෙන් තමයි පටන් ගන්නෙ. ඒ විදිහට ඒක මතක තියාගන්න. හරිද? parasympathetic කියන්නේ rest and digest. හරි ඒක ඉතින් brain එකේ ගිහිල්ලා stimuli එක ඕන තැනක කරක් ගහලාවට then it's okay, right? So parasympathetic nerves exit at the base of the brain or the spinal cord. Parasympathetic nerves brain එකෙනුත් එනවා spinal cord එක from the base of the brain, right? From the base of the brain and the spinal cord. And the next difference is, in sympathetic nerves, pre-ganglionic fiber is short and post-ganglionic fiber is long. And parasympathetic nerves, pre-ganglionic fiber is long and post-ganglionic fiber is short, right? Give 2 marks. Okay. Others? Right. Shall we move to next one? Right. What is meant by resting potential of a neuron? Resting potential. Resting potential. Resting potential. When a neuron is at rest, the membrane potential is called the resting potential. ඒ කියන්නේ nerve එක දිගේ neuron එක දිගේ stimuli එකක් යන්නේ නැත්නම් rest එකේ නම් එයා ඉන්නේ. අන්න ඒකට අපි කියනවා එතරම්දි එයාගේ potential එක membrane potential එකට අපි කියනවා resting potential. When a neuron is at rest, the membrane potential is called the resting potential. හරිද? Next one, Roman number 3. What is the value range of resting potential of a non-conducting neuron? Minus, right, negative 60 millivolt to negative 80 millivolts. Right? 1 mark. Next one. What are the 3 factors that maintain the resting potential of a neuron? හරිද? දැන් මෙන්න මේ පාරේ essay එකට ඔන්න ඔය ටික එන්නත් පුළුවන්. Resting potential එක explain about the resting potential. හරිද? ඒ වගේ essay එකක් එන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒකත් බලා ගන්න. අපි ලියමු essays ටිකක් class එකේවත්. Distribution of first one, distribution of ion concentration inside and outside of the neuron. Distribution of ion concentration inside and outside of the neuron. Then selective permeability of the plasma membrane to K plus and sodium plus ions. Selective permeability of the plasma membrane to K plus and sodium plus ions. Third one, sodium potassium pump. Sodium potassium pump. 3 marks. Okay. Any doubts? Next one, Roman number 5. State one function of following hormones. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Right? There are 2 functions. You can write only one. First one, stimulate growth and development of ovarian follicles. Stimulate growth and development of ovarian follicles. Next one, stimulate spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis. හරිද? දැන් අර පළවෙනි එක it's related to the female reproductive system and the second one related to the male reproductive system. Part B, oxytocin. Oxytocin stimulate milk ejection by contraction of smooth muscles. Second one, promotes parturition by contraction of smooth muscles. Then C, HCG, right? Rescues the corpus luteum from degeneration and sustained secretion of progesterone and estrogen, which maintain uterine lining, prevent menstruation, right? Give 3 marks. Roman number 6. What are the 2 hormones that regulate blood calcium 2 plus level? 2 plus level, right? Ca 2 plus level. Calcitonin and PTH, pyrothyroid hormones. Calcitonin and PTH, pyrothyroid hormones. Yes, you can write PTH, but should be capital. It's not simple. Capital PTH. Okay, then last one. State 3 main functions of human skeleton, right? Support, movement, protection. 3 marks. Here also, you can multiply like... you have to multiply your marks from 2.5 and you can convert it to 100. Okay. Shall we move to 4th question? Right. If you need, I can give you a 5-minute break. Do you need a break? Oh, it's 9:50. Oh, Ilma needs a break. Right, you can join again at 10, right? Please don't leave. Don't leave. Question number 4, part A, Roman number 1. So this part is from the molecular biology lesson, right? Yes. What is DNA replication? The process which copies a double-stranded DNA molecule to produce two identical copies. Give 1 mark. The process which copies a double-stranded DNA molecule to produce two identical copies. Roman number 2, part A, right? We have to write down the enzyme responsible for those processes. Separating two strands of DNA molecule. DNA helicase. That is done by DNA helicase. Part B, relieving the strain of one or both strands of DNA and resealing the cut ends. Topoisomerase. And part C, formation of phosphodiester bonds between adjacent DNA fragments. DNA ligase, right? DNA ligase. DNA helicase, topoisomerase, DNA ligase. Give 3 marks. Then, Roman number 3. What are the 2 steps of polypeptide synthesis? Transcription and translation, 2 marks. Roman number 4 states 2 differences of transcription compared to DNA replication. Right here, first one. In DNA replication, both strands of DNA are used. But in DNA transcription, only one strand of the double-stranded DNA acts as the template. Second difference, DNA transcription converts DNA into a RNA, but DNA replication make another copy of DNA molecule. 2 marks. Roman number 5, what is genetic mutation, right? Mutations. The permanent alteration of DNA sequence of a gene is called a gene mutation or genetic mutation. Permanent alteration of DNA sequence of a gene. Then, question number, Roman number 6. State 3 types of gene mutations. Substitution, insertion and deletion. 3 marks. Roman number 7. Name 1 genetic disorder due to trisomy of an autosome. Down syndrome. The answer should be Down syndrome. Give 1 mark. Part B, Roman number 1. Right? Then make another microbiology. What is the reason for high growth rate of microorganism? Right? Your answer should include these points. First one, microorganisms possess high surface area to volume ratio due to their smaller size. Microorganisms possess high surface area to volume ratio due to their smaller size. Next point, they have large surface area available for exchange of materials from the external environment, right? Since they are very small in size, surface area to volume ratio is high. Surface area to volume ratio is greater means they have a large surface area to exchange materials with the external environment. Next point. Therefore, flowing rate of materials into the inside of the cells and the exit of waste materials to the outside of the cells increases. Next point. Thus, they have high metabolic rate, flow rate. Inflow එකයි outflow එකයි, that rate is greater. So, the metabolic rate is high. Last point. As a result, average generation time. That means, average generation time means the time required to double the population. හරිද? එක්කෙනා දෙන්නෙක් වෙන්න නෙමෙයි, population එකක්, සම්පූර්ණ population එකක් double වෙන්න යන කාලය තමයි average generation time කියන්නේ. That average generation time is relatively less. Okay. Give 3 marks. ඔය ලකුණු ඔක්කොම ටික ලියලා නම් 3 marks දෙන්න. Then name the physiological group of following microorganism based on the utilization of O2. So when you learn about, when you study microbiology, you classify microorganism into 4 groups, right? Based on their utilization of O2. Aerobic, anaerobic, facultative anaerobic, and microaerophilic. Right? Here, Clostridium, obligate anaerobic. Obligate anaerobic. They produce energy by fermentation. E. coli, Escherichia coli, part B, facultative anaerobic. Facultative anaerobic. And part C, lactobacillus, microaerophilic. Microaerophilic බලන්නේ word එකෙන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට definition එක මතක තියාගන්න පුළුවන්. Micro means small amount of, aero කියන්නේ oxygen, philic means like. Right? They prefer to grow, they grow in environments with oxygen, with less concentration of oxygen. Microaerophilic. So, obligate anaerobic, facultative anaerobic, and microaerophilic. Give 3 marks. Then, Roman number 3, state 3 main steps in an urban water treatment plant. Sedimentation and coagulation, filtration, disinfection. 3 marks. Sedimentation and coagulation, filtration, disinfection. 3 marks. Roman number 4, state 2 diseases occur due to consumption of contaminated water. Right? මොනවද හැදෙන්නේ? චූටි ගාලෙත් ඉගෙන ගන්න එකක් ඔය. Typhoid fever. Right? Then cholera, paratyphoid, gastroenteritis, dysentery. You have to write only 2. Typhoid, fever, paratyphoid, cholera, gastroenteritis, and dysentery. Then, next one. State 3 chemical changes occur in food spoilage. Fermentation, rancidity, and putrefaction. 3 marks. Right. Part C, that is from environmental biology. Right. Environmental biology. What is meant by an ecological niche? Ecological niche means the role that a particular organism play in its ecosystem. The role that a particular organism play in its ecosystem. What is the ecological pyramid which is always upright? Energy pyramids, right? Energy pyramids are always upright. උඩට යනකොට energy එක අඩු වෙනවා නේ. food chain එක මොකද වෙන්නේ? එන්න අන්තිමට පින් එක්කනට යන energy එක අඩු වෙනවා. Right? ඒකනේ අපි කියන්නේ, right? When the number of links is like when there are only 3 links, right? The efficiency is higher. Links ගාන වැඩි වෙන මොකද වෙන්නේ? Efficiency එක අඩුයි. අන්තිමට පින් එක්කනට හම්බෙන energy අඩුයි. So the energy pyramids are always upright. Then, what is a biome? Biome means it is a large geographical area which is classified based on the predominant vegetation adapted to that particular region. Large geographical area which is classified based on the predominant vegetation adapted to that particular region. 2 marks. Then, Now look at the Roman number 4. Name the major tropical biomes of the world. Right? ඔතන එකක් දෙකක් ලියලා ඉන්න එපා. එතන අපිට තියෙන ඔක්කොම ටික ලියමු. Tropical forest, savanna, deserts, chaparral, temperate grasslands, temperate broadleaf forest, northern coniferous forest and tundra. 1 mark. ඔය ඔක්කොන්ටම එක ලකුණයි. Then state 2 main threats to biodiversity. Habitat loss, right? Overexploitation, pollution, introduction of invasive alien species. Last one, climate change. Give 2 marks, and for the previous one, please give 4 marks. Okay? Not 1 mark, 4 marks. For the 4th one, 4 marks. And for the 5th one, 2 marks. Roman number 6, that is from applied biology. What is the applied biology? Your last unit. What are stem cells? Undifferentiated cells which can give rise to new cells. Undifferentiated cells which can give rise to new cells. Then last question, 1 mark. Embryonic stem cells and adult stem cells, right? 2 types of stem cells. Embryonic stem cells and adult stem cells. 2 marks. Further, you can multiply your marks from 2.5, right? There are 40, right? Multiplied by 2.5 and converted to 100. So the structured essay part is over now. Okay? Further. Right. Now we'll start essay discussion. Further. Right? Can you see the paper? Can you see the paper? Essay paper. No. Yes. Okay. Now look at the essay questions part B, right? So out of these questions, you have to answer only 4 questions. Then ඔයගොල්ලෝ writing session එකට join වෙලා ලියද්දී 4ක් විතරක් ලියුවට timing තියලා අනිත් ටිකත් ලියන්න. හරිද? අනිත් දෙකත් ලියන්න. ඔයගොල්ලෝ මිස් කරපු දෙකත් ලියන්න. Right? Part 5, right? Question number 5, part A. Explain about the structure of plasma membrane. Part B, what are the functions of plasma membrane? හරි? දැන් organelles වලින් තාම මෙහෙම එකක් අහලා නැහැ. මෙහෙම එකක් සමහරට short note එකකට හරි එන්න පුළුවන්. Right? හිතන තැන් වල ඉන්නේ දාන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ. તો plasma membrane කියන එක තාම ආවේ නැහැ. කොයි වෙලේ හරි එන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් ඒ හින්දායි මම ඒක දැම්මේ. Right. එතකොට මෙතනදී දැන් structure of plasma membrane කිව්වම what you have to do, you have to draw that structure. You have to show that like fluid mosaic model and you have to label it. Something මෙන්න මේක කරෙන්න ඕනේ. මේ diagram එක තියෙනවා. right? Lipid bilayer. Then you can mark transmembrane proteins, right? Peripheral proteins. Then peripheral proteins තියෙන inner side එකේ විතරයි. හරි, ඒ කියන්නේ cell එක ඇතුලේ විතරයි. Then glycolipids, glycoproteins, cholesterol. You can mark extracellular side of the membrane and cytoplasmic side of the membrane. හරි, book එකේ තියෙන ওই විදිහට තමයි lipid bilayer එක. Plasma membrane එකේ structure එක. Right. අපි දැන් ලියාගමු essay points ටික. Part 10. Number 1. Plasma membrane is the outer limit of the cytoplasm. Plasma membrane is the outer limit. Sorry. Plasma membrane is the outer limit of the cytoplasm. Next point. All cellular membranes resemble the ultrastructure of plasma membrane. Next point. Singer and Nicholson put forward the fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane. Singer and Nicholson put forward the fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane. Next point. It is mainly composed of phospholipids. Next point. And proteins. Next point. Plasma membrane is about 7 nanometer thick. Next point. Phospholipids are mainly made up of phospholipid bilayer. Then next one. Phospholipids are amphipathetic molecules. Phospholipids are amphipathetic molecules. Number 9. The hydrophilic heads of phospholipid face outwards into the aqueous environment of both inside and outside of the cell. Next point. The hydrophobic hydrocarbon tails face inwards and create hydrophobic interior. Next point. Plasma membrane is compared to the fluid mosaic model. Next point. Phospholipid molecules are movable. They provide fluid nature to the membrane. Protein molecules, next point, protein molecules embedded randomly contribute to its mosaic nature. Next point, protein molecules are embedded randomly contribute to its mosaic nature. Write the same thing, sorry. Next point, these proteins are called integral proteins, right? Integral proteins. Next point, transmembrane proteins. Transmembrane proteins. Next point, they are a type of integral proteins which penetrate all the way through the membrane. Next point. Some other proteins penetrate only part of the way into the membrane. Next point. Most integral proteins are transmembrane proteins. Integral proteins are, yeah. Now if we take that plasma membrane, ඒකේ දැක්කද අර මම පෙන්නපු ස්ට්‍රක්චර් ෆිගර් එකේ සමහරව නිකන් තියෙන්නේ මේ මොනවාද මේ මොනවද අපි ඒවට කියන්නේ නිකන් අර සුදු පාටට මොනවද නිකන් සුදු පාට ගල් වගේ තිබ්බා නේද දැක්කද අන්න ඒව තමයි අපි කියන්නේ ප්‍රෝටීන්ස්. එතකොට ප්ලාස්මා මෙම්බ්‍රේන් එකේ එබිලා තියෙන ඒවා. ඒකනේ එබිලා තියෙන ඒවාට අපි කියන මොනවද? ඉන්ටිග්‍රල් ප්‍රෝටීන්ස් කියලා. එතකොට ඉන්ටිග්‍රල් ප්‍රෝටීන්ස් ಜಾති දෙකක් තියෙනවා. transmembrane. Transmembrane කියන්නේ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම බයිලේයර් එක හරහා ගිහින් තියෙනවා. මෙන්න මේ විදිහට. මේ මේ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම penetrate කරපු කට්ටියට අපි කියනවා transmembrane proteins කියලා. හැබැයි තව කට්ටියක් ඉන්නවා they are partially penetrate. Right? They partially penetrate. Only part, they penetrate only part of the membrane. මේ භාගයයි. භාගයක තමයි ගිලිලා ඉන්නේ. එතකොට මෙන්න මේ දෙගොල්ලන්ටම අපි කියන්නේ integral proteins කියලා. ඊට අමතරව මේ bilayer එකේ there is another type of proteins called peripheral proteins. Peripheral proteins කියලා જાතියක් ඉන්නවා. Peripheral proteins කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ bilayer එකේ penetrate වෙලා නැහැ. ඇතුලේ එබිලා නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ ඒකට ඒ කියන්නේ එළියෙන් attach වෙලා ඉන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් ඒවා තියෙන්නේ දැන් අපි cell එක ගත්තොත් මේ තියෙන cell එක නම් හරිද? මේ cell එකේ ඇතුල් පැත්තේ තමයි මේව තියෙන්නේ. හරි එළිය පැත්තේ නැහැ මේ peripheral proteins ඇතුල් පැත්තේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ. හරිද? එතකොට proteins ಜಾති දෙකයි integral and peripheral. Integral proteins are again two types as transmembrane proteins and proteins that penetrate only part of the bilayer. Okay, Ilma? Okay. Right. Yes. Most integral proteins are transmembrane proteins. Most integral proteins are transmembrane proteins. Next point. They have hydrophilic channels. They have hydrophilic channels. They are hydrophilic channels. Next point, through which molecules and ions can pass. Next point, peripheral proteins. Next point, they are not embedded in the lipid bilayer at all and are loosely bound to the surface of the membrane. හරිද? දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ medicine select වුණාම ඒකේ තියෙනවානේ අපේ first 2 years වල subjects තුනයිනේ. anatomy, physiology and biochemistry. physiology වල තියෙන පළවෙනි chapter එකේ ඔන්න ඔව ඉගෙන ගන්නවා. peripheral proteins අරවා මේවා ටික පළවෙනි chapter එකේ තියෙන්නේ ඒ ටික. right? Physiology. Under physiology you will learn about these parts. Then some proteins and lipids have short branching carbohydrate chain like antennas. Next point, forming glycoproteins and next point, glycolipids respectively. Animals, next point, animal cell membrane may contain few cholesterol molecules, right? එතකොට plant cells වල නෑ cholesterol molecules තියෙන animal cell membrane එකේ. 28. Randomly integrated into the lipid bilayer. Cholesterol molecules, they are randomly integrated into the lipid layer, right? Next point, cholesterol molecules provide rigidity and stability to the membrane. Cholesterol molecules provide rigidity and stability to the membrane. Next point, the last point, the two sides of the membrane may differ in composition and function. The two sides of the membrane may differ in composition and function. හරිද? එතකොට part A කියන essay එකට එන්න ඕනි ඔන්න ඔය ටික. තේරුණාද? එතන points 30යි, right? Label diagram එකට 10 ලකුණු 10යි. Points 10යි. right? මම එක marking scheme එක ඒ ටික හදලා දාන්න. marks එන හැටි. බලමු අපි ඊළඟට part B. What are the functions of the plasma membrane? Right? Number 1. The plasma membrane surrounds the cytoplasm of living cells, physically separating the intracellular components from the extracellular environment. Number 2. Plasma membrane is selectively permeable and able to regulate the exchange of materials needed for survival. Right? Next point. Proteins are embedded in the plasma membrane, identify the cell, enabling nearby cells to communicate with each other. Next point. Some protein molecules act as receptor molecules for interacting with specific biochemicals such as hormones, neurotransmitters, and immune proteins. Next point. Some proteins in the cell membrane attach to some cytoskeletal fibers and help to maintain the shape of the cell. Last point. Some proteins in the membrane act as enzymes. හරි? ඔය essay එකේ තියෙන්න ඕනි ඔය ටික. Any doubts? ප්‍රශ්න මොකුත් තියනවද? දැන් මේ ඩිස්කස් කරන කිසිම දෙයක මාකින් ස්කීම් එකක් දෙන්නේ නැහැ. අද ඩිස්කස් කරන්න බැරි ටික විතරයි මාකින් ස්කීම් එකකට දෙන්නේ. right? හරිද? Question number 6, part A. Briefly describe the life cycle of typical angiosperms. Right? අන්න. Life cycle එකක් අහන්නත් පුළුවන් මේ පාර. Now typical angiosperm life cycle. දැන් මෙහෙම එකකදී ඉස්සෙල්ලා මොකද්ද කරන්නේ ඔයගලන්ට පුළුවන් ඒකේ අර live මේ cycle එක ඇඳ ගන්න. Then it is easy for you to explain, right? Anyway, your essay should include these points. Flowering plants show alteration of generation. First point, flowering plants show alteration of generation. With, second point, haploid gametophytic generation. With haploid gametophyte generation. And diploid, next point, diploid sporophyte generation. Diploid sporophyte generation. Fourth one, sporophytes are dominant. Sporophytes are dominant. Next point, free living. Free living. Free living. Next point, have well-developed stem, roots, and leaves. Have well-developed roots, stems, and leaves. Next point, produce flowers as a reproductive organ. Produce flowers as a reproductive organ. Next point, androsium has stems. This is for the question number 6, part A, Ilma. Right? Describe the life cycle of typical angiosperm. Okay? In the resource book? Yes, in the resource book also, like in the fourth chapter, there are life cycles of plants. Right? Flowering plants වල තියෙන්නේ ඒකේ තියෙනවා. Life cycle of flowering plants. Right. Now, where did I stop? Sixth point, have well-developed stem, roots, and leaves. Seventh one, produce flower as a reproductive organ. Number 8, androsium has stems. Number 9, stamens have anther and filaments. Number 10, anther has pollen sacs. Number 11, pollen grains are produced. Number 12, from pollen mother cells in pollen sacs. Next point, by meiosis. Next point, pollen sacs ruptures and pollen grains are released. Pollen sacs are ruptured and pollen cells are released. Pollen grains are released. Next point, gynosium is made of carpels. Gynosium is made of carpels. Next point, it has stigma, style, and ovary. It has stigma, style, and ovary. Next point. Ovules are not exposed. Next point. Female gametophyte is found in ovule. Next point. It is known as embryo sac. Next point. It has 3 antipodal cells. Next point. 2 synergies. Next point. 1 egg cell. And next point. 2 polar nuclei. Next point. During pollination, pollen grain reaches stigma. Next point. Pollen grain germinates on stigma and produce male gametophyte. Next point. Male gametophyte has 2 male gametes. Next point. Pollen tube grows through style. Next point. And reaches embryo sac in ovule. Next point. Wall of pollen tube ruptures and releases male gametes into embryo sac. Next point. 1 male gamete fertilizes with egg. Next point. And forms diploid zygote. Next point. Other male gamete fertilizes with secondary nucleus or 2 polar nucleus. Next point. And forms triploid endosperms. Next point. This is known as double fertilization. Right? මෙතන points ගන්න මොකද්ද? ඒ points වලට තමයි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ලකුණු එක ගන්න හම්බෙන්නේ. හරි? තමයි points කඩලා තියෙන්නේ. Next point. After fertilization, ovary develops into fruit. Next point. Ovules become seeds. Next point. Zygote becomes embryo. Endosperm. Next point. Endosperm nucleus form endosperm. Next point. Seeds germinates. Next point. Embryo develops into sporophyte again. There are 40 points. Right? 40 points. Part B. Adaptations for terrestrial life. Right? Okay? Hari neda? Harida? Shall we move to next one? Right. Others, Binath, Huvini, Aisha. Okay, part B, බලන්න. First point, xylem tissue has vessels. Next point, phloem has sieve tube and companion cells. Next point, sex organs in flowers are well protected. Next point, flowers have adaptations for cross-pollination. Next point, megaspores are surrounded by a sheath. Next point, absence of free-living male or female gametophyte. Next point, pollen tube carries male gametes. Or fertilization without utilizing external water. Next point, production of immobile male gametes. Next point, occurrence of double fertilization. Next point, storage of food for embryo after fertilization. Next point, seeds are found in fruits. Next point, embryo is protected inside the seed. Next point, have efficient mechanism for the dispersal of fruits and seeds. Last point, formation of perennial seeds. Right? Altogether there are 50 points. හරිද? SS දෙකම ලකුණු points 50 into 3, 150. Okay. Shall we move to next? Question number 7. Write an account on human blood pressure. Right? It is a guess essay again. ගිය පාරත් ගෙස් කරා ආවේ නැහැනේ ගිය පාරත් ඉංග්‍රීසිලා ගෙස් කරානේ ඔක ආවේ නැහැ මේ පාර එන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි right structured හරි එන්න මොන හරි අහන්න පුළුවන් දැන් එකත් practice වෙන්න blood pressure first point blood pressure is the force that blood exerts on the walls of blood vessel as it travels the force that blood exerts on the walls of blood vessel as it travels is the blood pressure. Next point. Blood pressure in the arteries of systemic circulation maintains the essential flow of blood into and out of the organs of the body. Next point. Blood pressure should be within normal limits. Next point. High blood pressure can lead to damaged blood vessels, resulting formation of clots or bleeding from damaged sites. Next point. If blood pressure falls too low, next point, there will be inadequate blood flow through tissue capillary beds. Next point. It will adversely affect on normal functioning of vital organs such as brain, heart, and kidneys. Next point. Blood pressure varies according to time of the day, posture, gender, age, activity, exercise, and stress of an individual. Next point. Blood pressure falls at rest and during sleep. Next point. Blood pressure increases during excitement, fear, and anxiety. Next point. Systolic pressure is the pressure. Systolic pressure is the pressure produced within the arterial system. Produced within the arterial system. Next point. When the ventricles contract, next point, and pushes blood into aorta. And pushes blood into aorta. Next point. At rest, systolic pressure in a normal healthy adult is about 120 mercury millimeters. Next point. Diastolic pressure. Next point. Is the blood pressure within the arteries following ejection of blood at complete cardiac diastole. Next point. In a normal, healthy adult, diastolic pressure is about 80 mercury millimeters. Next point. Arterial blood pressure is measured by sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. Next point. Hypertension hypertension. Next point, sustained elevated blood pressure above normal limits. Above normal limits. Next point, consequences of hypertension are kidney damage, right? Adrenal gland disorders, heart attack, right? Stroke, damaged blood vessels which can cause to death. Then next point, risk factors for hypertension. Obesity, diabetes mellitus, family history, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, high intake of salts, high intake of alcohol, stress, deposition of low density lipoproteins on artery walls. Next point, hypotension, right? Next point, sustained reduction of blood pressure below normal limits. Sustained reduction of blood pressure below normal limits. Next point. Hypertension occurs as a complication of other conditions such as shock, dengue hemorrhage fever, standing up suddenly from sitting or lying position, overbleeding, fasting, low nutrition. Next point. Low blood pressure leads to inadequate blood supply to the brain. Next point. Depending on the cause of unconsciousness, may be brief or prolonged, possibly causing death. Right? ඔන්න blood pressure කියන එකට ඔය ටික ඔක්කොම ලියවෙන්න ඕනි. ඔක්කොම ලිව්වද ඔයගොල්ලෝ? Did you explain about systolic, diastolic, hypertension and hypotension? Okay? හරිද? Please reply. Others? Right. Be not good. What about Winnie, Aisha, Ilma, and where's this one? Hafsana. What happened to you? Right. Question number 8, part A. You didn't write. Okay. දැන් මේ essays වලට මෙහෙමයි practice කරන්නේ. හරිද? essays practice කරන දැන් මම කියවනේ marking scheme එකක් තියෙනවානේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගාව essay එකට. දැන් plasma membrane ගත්ත කියමු. Now you have a marking scheme. ඕක ඔයා CR පොතක් හරි මොකක් හරි පොතක් අරගෙන ඒක ලියාගන්න. දැන් සති 8ක් වගේනේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒකේ ලියලා දැන් අද උදේ ඔක ලියනවා කියලා හිතන්න. හරිද? ඔතන අපි හිතමු points 40ක් තිබ්බා කියලා. දැන් අද උදේ ඔක ඔයා කොලේ ලියනවා. marking scheme එක ලියලා plus and ලියලා තියෙනවා. ආයි ඔක රැට ලියන්න. රැට ප්‍රශ්න ලියුවා මතකයෙන් ලියනවා. එකපාරක් උත්තරේ කියවනවා මතකයෙන් ලියනවා. ලියලා බලන්න කොයි points ද නැත්තේ. කොයි points ද ඔයාලට miss උනේ. ඒ ටික අර ඔයාගේ marking scheme එකේ highlight කරන්න. හරිද? highlight කරන්න. ආයි පහුවෙන්දන් ලියන්න. ආයි ලොකු වෙලාවක් ගන්න එපා. 10 minutes වලින් වගේ ලියන්න. හරි? නිකන් අර බත් කාලා dessert එකට වගේ වුණත් ඔය වැඩේ කරන්න පුළුවන්. ආයි බලන්න මොනවද points නැත්තේ. ඕක කීප වතාවක් එකම එක ආයි ලියවෙද්දී ඕක මතක හිටිනවා. Right? You can do the same thing for all the essays. Right? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll repeat in English. Right here, this is for the to practice essay questions, right? Now, for example, I gave you a marking scheme for the plasma membrane, right? For example, now let's explain about the structure of plasma membrane. What you have to do is write down that question and write down that marking scheme like in a proper way, right? Right? After that, now you wrote that marking scheme in the morning, right? Today evening or before go to the bed, right? Take a separate paper and write down that question and just go through your marking scheme one more time and try to write the answer without looking that marking scheme, right, from your memory. Okay, in a separate paper. And just compare your answer with the marking scheme, right? Then there may be like you may have missed several points. Then mark those missed points using a highlight or something. You can mark them. Then the day after, like now let's take like if you wrote the answer like today night, then tomorrow morning also, you have to write down the same, like you have to answer that same essay question, right? Do that for several days, right? Then you can remember all those points. Do the same thing for all the essays. That's how I studied essays. Okay? Apsana. Okay. Can you understand that method? Right. So do it at home. You can take a separate book or some rough papers and write down all the marking schemes, right? And do that method. Follow the method, right? Yes. Next one. Question number 8, part A. Yes, here the past paper questions. Don't use the marking scheme, right? You can use 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 4 years. But don't use the marking schemes of previous years. Like before 2019, the syllabus is different, right? So you can like, do you know there are shadow papers? Do you know about shadow papers? You have to rearrange like that, no. Don't take the marking scheme. Take that abstract that. Now take that question, extract the question, and try to produce a new marking scheme according to your resource book, right? Okay. Yes. Question number 8, part A. Describe the raw structure and functions of human respiratory system. Now, yeah. Respiratory system. Now here also you have to use a diagram, right? You can draw the respiratory system and you can you can label oral, not oral, nasal cavity, trachea, then bronchi, left and right bronchus separately, right? Alveoli, right? Lungs, you have to label those things, right? Yes. Give me a second. Right. Write down. First part A. Number 1. Human respiratory system consists of following major parts. Next point. Nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx. Next point. A series of branching ducts starting from the trachea. 2 bronchi. Next point. 1 leading to each lung and smaller bronchioles, which finally end in air sacs called alveoli. Next point. The bronchioles and the alveoli are contained within the paired cone-shaped, next point, lungs located in the thoracic cavity, right? Next point, the two lungs differ slightly in shape and size. Next point, the left lung is slightly smaller than the right due to the position of the heart. Okay. Next point, because of the apex of heart is slightly to the left of the median plane and it has two lobes while the right lung has three lobes. Next point, each lung is surrounded by two membranes. Next point, the inner membrane called visceral pleura adheres to the outer surface of the lungs, while the outer membrane called the parietal pleura, adheres to the wall of the thoracic cavity. Next point, between these two membranes, there is a thin fluid-filled space. Next point, during respiration, air enters the respiratory system through nostrils. Next point, in the nasal cavity, air is filtered by hairs and is warmed and humidified as it travels through spaces in the nasal cavity. Now here, describe the growth structure and function. Then growth structure, if there's only the growth structure, you don't have to mention about these things. But here we have to mention, we have to describe the function of each part. Okay. In the nasal cavity, air is filtered by hairs and is warmed and humidified as it travels through the spaces in the nasal cavity. Next point, the nasal cavity leads to the pharynx, which is a common passage for both air and food. That means air passage and food passage cross each other. Next point, during swallowing of food, the larynx moves upwards, which allows the epiglottis to close the opening of larynx called glottis. Next point, this allows food to go down the esophagus to the stomach. Next point, the rest of the time the glottis is open so that air can move from the pharynx through the larynx to the trachea. Next point, in the larynx are vocal cords which are made up of largely elastic fibers. Next point, these vocal cords help produce sound when expired air rushes across the stretched or tensed vocal cords, causing them to vibrate. Next point, both the walls of the larynx and trachea are strengthened by cartilage that help these airways to keep open. Next point, the air passes from the trachea into the two bronchi that lead into each lung. Next point, within the lung, the air passes through smaller and smaller branches of the bronchi called bronchioles. Next point, the epithelium found in the major branches of this respiratory tract has cilia and a thin film of mucus. The mucus helps trap the dust and other particulate contaminants in the inhaled air. Then, next point, then the beating of cilia moves this mucus upward towards the pharynx where it is swallowed into the esophagus. Next point, this process is referred to as mucus escalator. Next point, it helps clean the respiratory system. Next point, at the tips of the tiniest bronchioles are a large number of small air sacs clustered together. Next point, the air passes into these air sacs called alveoli, where gas exchange occurs. Next point, the walls of the alveoli are made up of a single layer of flattened epithelial cells that lack cilia. Next point, this inner lining of the alveoli is coated by a thin film of fluid. Next point, the lungs contain millions of alveoli. Next point, This allows a large surface area for gas exchange. Next point. Each alveolus is also surrounded by a network of capillaries. Next point. Oxygen in the air that enters the alveoli dissolves in the moist film and rapidly diffuses across the thin epithelium into the capillaries. Next point. A net diffusion of carbon dioxide occurs from the capillaries into the alveoli. Next point. Since there are no cilia in the alveoli, there are white blood cells in the alveoli to engulf foreign particles. Next point. Alveoli are also coated with a surfactant that reduces the surface tension, thereby preventing the collapse of alveoli due to high surface tension. There are 41 points. Okay. Please practice this essay because in previous exams, right, they asked about digestive system, reproductive system, excretory system, immunity, and yeah. So there is a possibility of getting infection from the respiratory system or circulatory system. Higher possibility. Question part B. Describe the mechanism of ventilation of the lungs. Right. Number 1. Ventilation of lung is necessary to maintain high oxygen and low carbon dioxide concentration in the alveoli or the gas exchange surface. Next point. Ventilation is accomplished by breathing, which is the alternating movement of air. Next point. Air the same point. Air into and out of the lungs. Next point. Humans employ what is referred to as negative pressure breathing, where air is pulled rather than pushed into the lungs. Next point. Inhalation is an active process. Next point. Contraction of rib muscles or intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. Next point. Which is a sheet of skeletal muscles that forms the bottom of the thoracic cavity, leads to the expansion of the thoracic cavity. Next point. The visceral and parietal pleura surrounding the lung stick together due to the surface tension of the fluid between these two membranes. Next point. This allows the two membranes to slide smoothly past each other. Hence, as the volume of the thoracic cavity increases, the lung volume increases as well. As a result, next point, as a result, the pressure within the lungs decreases relative to the outside air. Next point, this creates a pressure gradient between the atmosphere and the lungs. Next point. Thus, air flows from a high pressure gradient in the atmosphere to a lower pressure gradient in the lungs. Next point. During exhalation, which is usually a passive process, the rib muscles and the diaphragm relax. Next point. This causes the volume of thoracic cavity to reduce. Next point. As a result, the pressure inside the lungs increases in relation to the air outside. Next point. This pressure forces air to move out of the lungs through the respiratory tubes into the atmosphere. Next point. When a man is at rest, contraction of rib muscles and contraction of diaphragm are enough for breathing. Next point. However, depending on the activity level, additional muscles may be used to aid breathing, such as muscles of the neck, back, and chest. Next point. These muscles further help to increase the volume of the thoracic cavity by raising the rib cage. Last point. during exercises, right? There are 20 points in that essay. Yes, you have to draw. Yes. You have to draw the gross structure of the human respiratory system, right? You don't have to draw the alveoli and capillary network separately, right? Only the cross structure of the human respiratory system is enough. I mean the nasal cavity, then trachea, larynx, right? Then two bronchioles, lungs, right? Diaphragm, that is enough. So we have to discuss question number 9 and 10, right? I'll include those two in the marking scheme because we don't have time. And also MCQs. Now it's 11. Now the time is 11. So for the MCQs, I'll send you a review PDF, right? Review. Every MCQ, there will be a review for every MCQ, okay? And yesterday we released your MCQ marks. Did you see that? Did you get that? Did you get your marks? We released yesterday. Check your email, right? Check your email. We send it as an email. Right. So we discuss 4 structured essay questions and 4 essay questions. And there will be a review PDF for the MCQ part. And I will include question number 9 and 10 in the marking scheme. Any doubts? Any doubts? Uvini, Aisha, Ilma, Apsana, any doubts? No. Right. You can answer exam target special paper 2 in the next week from Wednesday to Saturday, right? And you can join for the game discussion next Sunday. And in the next week, we'll send you the marked paper 1, your marked papers, right? Okay.